whole family, and they were never ever coming back to their house again. So they had to have everything in there, all the tools that they would need, all the cooking pots, and things that they would need. And very important to them was their Bible, because their faith, that's the one reason that they were leaving. So everything had to be in there. So sometimes they probably couldn't even bring toys. Right. If they did, maybe the girls had a doll, they had to carry it the entire time. And their clothes, they didn't have room in there for clothes, so they would wear as many of their clothes as they could.
Can you imagine doing that?
Can you imagine wearing all of your clothes, maybe like 3 outfits for 2 months or more?
That would probably be tight.
Tight and kind of stinky after a while, yes sir.
One time, I wore like a bunch
You
of
wore?
I wore a bunch of layers of shirts.
Yeah, okay, and it tends to be uncomfortable. So that trunk by the Kamen family, the Mrs. Volker, that's part of her family. That's her family, okay?
Right. Okay. You want to go ahead? You did such
Oh.
a nice job last time. I remember.
I'm going to sneak out in a couple minutes and take other pictures.
Sure.
But okay, so if we look over on the wall over here, boys and girls, we have a portrait. And that is a portrait of Johann Williams. Now, you all know Mrs. Stenzel back at school, right?
Uh-huh.
So her husband's family, that's their relative. And he was a very prominent member that came over, and he had some money. He was wealthy. And he helped others who maybe didn't have as much money to come over. So he would lend them the money, and then when they were over here and they got settled, then they would slowly pay him back. All right, so when they got to Buffalo, then they stayed in some warehouses, and then they sent some of the men out here to look at different areas of land. And they looked all over Niagara County in the area, and they decided this is where they wanted to settle.
And it looks a little bit like back in Germany, because it's flat land. And they decided they'd have some good land for growing wheat and things like that. And then that city, that's right there is Hamburg, where they went to from the canal. And then those great big ships, they got on a ship like that to cross the ocean.
Okay, so we're going to slowly step over here. You guys kind of stay to the middle of the room, okay? And we're going to kind of look over here. So keep coming, keep coming, keep coming. All right, if you look over here, it says the land use. So what they did when they finally decided this is where they're going to buy the land, then they had to divide it up and make it into lots to try and figure out who gets to live where. Now, what would be the fair way to decide who gets to live where? What do you think they did, Dio?
Maybe they can pay for it.
That might be one way, but that's not how they did it. What do you think, Clara?
I think that they divided it up by how much space they all needed.
Could be, but think about in our classroom, how do I decide who gets to go first for certain things, or who gets to read in the classroom, Allison?
Probably like clips.
Yeah, so that's what they did. They put their name in on a piece of paper or something, and they put it all into a container, and then they pulled lots to see who would get to live where. Now, remember when we walked to school here, what street did we walk on? Washington Street, and then we came on Hunt Street here, and then it was on there's Niagara Road right there. All right, and then we came over here. So the families got their lot, and then they would build their houses, and this is a house that actually was one of the first ones there. So the lumber that was used to make this house was all the way out in Lockport. How many of you know where Lockport is? All right, so it takes about 20, 25 minutes to get there in a car these days, right? Now think about it. They didn't have cars. They would have to use oxen or horses and wagons, and they would bring all the wood here to build the houses. All right, and they had a gentleman who helped them. His name was Washington Hunt.
Does that sound familiar? She just said it before, didn't she?
Yes. So the people here were so grateful for all his help that they named 2 of the streets in the hamlet after him. Washington Street, which we walked on, and Hunt Street. Okay, so they brought all those pieces of wood, and they were all numbered, and they put them together, and I think there was about 26 of them?
I don't know.
Ruth said it yesterday, and I can't remember it. So there's about 500 people that came to settle here, and about 24, 26 houses. Now, if you do the math, that's a little beyond 2nd grade, but you have maybe about 20 people or more staying in a house over the winter time until they could make more houses in the springtime. Now think about that. Can you imagine fitting 20 people into these 2 rooms for eating, sleeping? Yeah, that was kind of crowded. All right. So now if we look over here, So they laid it out, they had their streets, and they started building their homes. So now we have some pictures here. This is a picture of the Cammon family. And you guys remember Mrs. Boker? Okay, this is her, I think this is the one, it's her grandpa, her great-grandpa. Grandpa? Great-grandpa. I can't remember now. This is my great-great-grandma.
What was her?
Emma?
Oh,
Emma Cammon, I'm a Stolting.
Oh, you're,
originally.
yeah.
Yep.
But your mother was a.
My mother was advanced here, my father was a
yeah.
Stolting.
Remember
Or my
that.
father is a Stolting. Yes, so that's how Mrs. Volker and I are related. Okay? And even through Stone, your grandma and grandma, or your grandpa Grandma Klecky. Jean Klecky.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yep. So she was a Cammon, and so there's a connection there too. So if we think about it, many people in our school, we have connections. They might be close connections, or they might be a little bit further back, like great-great-grandparents. So again, that's why you need to talk to your grandmas and grandpas and ask about their history, because you learn interesting things. Now down here at the bottom, I kind of want to show you a picture here. This is a formal picture here. What do you notice about the picture? Clara, what do you notice?
That the woman is wearing like a thing that
What's that called?
a veil, and it looks like they're getting married.
You are correct, but notice this is her wedding dress. What it's black, I know. What color are wedding dresses that you guys are used to? Luke?
White.
White. Well, why would she have a black wedding dress? Anybody have an idea? Think about a white dress versus a black dress. Theo, what do you think?
She's a nun.
No, that's not it. What do you think?
That they didn't maybe they didn't have white, or maybe it was the winter time.
Those are good guesses, but that's not it. So now remember, when they came over from Germany, they brought everything they had, and people back then didn't have as many. Think about your closets and your dresser drawers. Are they filled to overflowing with clothes?
Yeah.
Yes, it wasn't like that many 150 years ago. They maybe had 2 or 3 outfits. So making a white dress and then having to wear that as they did their laundry and gardening and all their wood chopping and chores didn't make sense, because what would happen to white if you're working outside? It would get dirty. So yes, most of the dresses were dark colors. That way they could wear them again for maybe their Sunday best dress, and then after a couple of years, then it just became like a regular dress, okay? So that is the wedding picture. And if you look, we've got a couple tools down here. Now, so that was, I'm not sure the age of that, but then Mrs. Volker yesterday said this is a wedding dress from the 1890s, so probably about 40, 50 years later. So notice it is a white dress, all right? And if we look over here, let's see. Let's see, on the wall here, I'm trying to think. Martha, do you know, is this a wedding certificate? You guys step to the side.
It says over there. It says Taufschein, which means, no, Traumschein, which is, yes, wedding certificate.
All right, so when someone would get married, this is the beautiful piece of paper that would be filled out and given to them to show them that they were married. And people were so proud of it. It's so pretty, isn't it? That they would frame them and hang them on the wall. Pretty cool, right?
What is that?
That is a coat of arms. So if you think back to Knights of the Round Table, or back when we talked about Martin Luther, and they had knights, so they had symbols or things that stood for their family on the shield.
I
Okay?
remember when I saw dragon going through their
Yep.
symbols.
All right, so in here we have some examples of clothing that was worn in those times, and I know Mrs. Volker pulled these out yesterday. These would be the type of shoes that ladies would wear.
They look like boots.
They do look like boots, don't they?
I would want
Think about the different, I'm just looking around the room and looking at your different styles of shoes. We have many different styles. This was what they wore, okay? And we walked over here in case it rained. And here, this is called a parasol. This is more to keep the sun
It looks
off your
very old.
It is very old. So most, these things were all donated by people who had them in their family, and they don't really use them anymore, so they want people to learn from them. So up in here, you can see, can I pull one out, Martha?
Okay,
Can I pull one out?
sure.
Okay. I'm gonna take this guy.
Looks like a chicken.
It does look like a chicken, doesn't it, Theo? So this is a hat, don't touch, just look, that ladies would wear because they would get dressed up for special occasions. And these were probably feathers off a bird of some sort. So yeah, pretty fancy. And then in here you can kind of see, here's a top hat, called a stovepipe hat, like Abraham Lincoln wore. Remember when we talked about him? And what did he keep in his hat? Because he didn't have a briefcase.
Oh, that's all right.
What did he keep in there, Theo?
Like papers.
Yeah, he got papers in there. All right, and then if we come right around here, we can see some examples of some piecework or some hand embroidery that was done. All right, to make like their tablecloths or doilies to put onto chairs to make them look pretty. And then these would be wall hangings. This one, I don't read German, but translation means where faith, their love, where love, their peace. Where peace, their blessing, where blessing, their God. Where God, there's no distress.
Right, and let me read it in German. You can
Awesome.
see what it sounded like when they were speaking. So it says, göttlicher Haussegen, wo Glaube da Liebe, wo Liebe da Friede, wo Friede da Segen, wo Segen da Gott. Gott is God, right? Okay, wo Gott da keine Not. Okay, that's what it sounds like.
Yep, that would be a traditional dress over in Germany. What stone?